have all come together today in support of the Ellis family and with the Ellis family to demand that the Department of Justice open an investigation that is more widespread than just the Manny Ellis matter. We are here as a coalition and a group to say that black people and people of color in the city of Tacoma are in danger when they're walking down the street alone. That they can be beaten, tased, hogtied, left for dead and killed by law enforcement, and with the stroke of a pen or the taps on a keyboard, they can be erased if we don't do anything. And we will take every step legally necessary to assure that the officers involved in the murder of Manuel Ellis are held accountable for their actions. But even in addition to that, I would say that we will also make sure that this sort of thing does not happen again. Too many families, too many loved ones in the city of Tacoma have been killed by law enforcement here with no response, no desire to improve, and nothing more than a cover-up. That time has changed, and we will not stop until all are held accountable. Not just for those that actually commit the final act of disgust in terms of killing and murder, but those that don't hesitate to help them hide it. Those that are essentially accomplices. I read a post from Ed Troyer in which he said, state of Washington, 0, something in the effect of us 4. Now, he was talking about his case in which he blamed a black paper man of a crime, where he actually called the police when the man was doing nothing wrong. That was his 0 for 1. And then he gloated at what ended up being an acquittal of the killers of Manuel Ellis in state court and said 0 for 4. So we're here to tell him as well, this is not a game. And we will not stop until justice reaches the city of Tacoma and Pierce County. And ultimately, given that his agency was the one that investigated the matter until they were exposed as having a conflict, which he had hidden, he's a part of this too. The time is now for the people of the city of Tacoma, Pierce County, and the state of Washington and the federal government to stand up and say Tacoma is not insulated from justice. Officers do not get to kill with impunity in the city of Tacoma. And we promise we will take all steps legally necessary to move forward in such a way that Manny's name is never forgotten and things authentically change here. And some of the folks that have loved ones that were murdered by police that stand up here right now receive some form of justice. And to the officers that killed Manuel Ellis, we will make sure that you never forget, and we'll make sure that everybody knows your name. At this moment, I'm going to give, well, maybe just a couple more things. A lot of folks asked us how we felt on the day of the verdict. They asked a completely grieving sister, how are you handling the verdict? How do you feel about it? What's your first thought? People ask me the same thing. While the moment is devastating, I will tell you this. I thought about other attorneys, other leaders, other people that have been part of the civil and human rights struggle, and how many times they were pushed back or were in a place where they didn't win yet, or we're in a place where justice was denied in a courtroom, and realize that we have come too far to stop now. And we won't stop, and nobody here will stop. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Monet, Manny's sister.
So I'm going to try and keep it short, but I don't only want justice for my brother. The more and more I hear about Jackie Salyer, Biddy Branch, and knowing what I've experienced through the court process and how they weren't even given a fair trial, and not even so much of a charging decision or anything, it makes my heart hurt really bad, because I hate to say if you only know if you've experienced, but to know that they know so much and they know so many things are hidden, just like I know so much. And I know so much was hidden, not only from the jury, from the community. There were so many things that weren't allowed in court due to what I believe is the judge colluding with the county in itself and the city, and not wanting to have a fair trial. That's not what they wanted. They wanted those pigs, because they're not officers. That's not how officers act or conduct themselves. Those pigs, they wanted those pigs to be able to go back home to their families. So they did whatever they could by abusing their power of authority and their title to get just that. The verdict wasn't fair, and to be honest, I did get my hopes up a little bit, but I know Tacoma and I know Pierce County, and nothing is ever what it seems to be down here, which is why myself, along with the Puyallup tribe and Jackie Salyer's family and other impacted family members, we demand for the Department of Justice to not only conduct an investigation and file indictments for the officers and the people responsible in my brother's death, but to also get down here and place a consent decree, especially on the city of Tacoma and their police department, as well as Pierce County. Because time and time again, before me and my family is Jackie's family. There's Benny Branch's family. There's Saeed Joaquin's family. Time and time again, these police departments have shown us that they'll collude together, they'll cover up evidence, they won't investigate, they will not do their jobs. They've proven that they will obstruct the law by any means necessary. They've proven that they will not only obstruct the law, but flat out lie, abuse the law, and abuse their power. These are all things that need to be stopped. And the Department of Justice, not only is it their job and their responsibility, but they're literally trained to do these things, to come in, do audits, look at all of the wrongful deaths or the things that just don't add up. That's what they're trained to do. They have an eye for it, and that's what we're demanding for them to come down and do, because this needs to stop. People of color, indigenous folks, minorities, blacks, whatever, we deserve to be able to walk down the street with a bottle of water and donuts if we feel like it in the middle of the night and not be harassed or beaten in the street. So I'm done, but I'm gonna have council member Rideout from the Puyallup tribe say his piece.
First of all, I want to say my heart goes out to the Manuel Ellis family. I spoke to the children at our school yesterday with my sister and told them that you don't want to know how this feels. It's the victims who pursue justice in the state of Washington We broke through with I-940 in 2018, which took a couple of years, but that's just a beginning point. That's just to identify, the actions of an officer and hold them somewhat accountable. But as we, listened to the determination of the Manuel Ellis case, we noticed that a lot of evidence was suppressed. They weren't given an opportunity to present critical information for those jurors. And it kind of set the precedence for what we finally got a trial, 8 years of seeking justice for Jackie Sawyers, 8 years later, that we're up against. And there's so many more things to do outside of I-940 and changing the law. And that's in the judicial system itself. At one point, there were 6 officers investigating themselves with 2 people from the community. That changed. And so it's sad that the victims, the families, the loved ones, because of the love of their family and their loved ones, will continue the pursuit for justice, no matter what that takes. But I think it's important when you air, something of this magnitude that the people of Washington State understand. We may have to go through a legislative process. We may need your support. We may need a vote down the road, just like we did I-940. We may need to look at how the prosecutors process everything in its entirety, from start to finish. I've been to several trials. I know several families and several victims. It's the same outcome in the courtrooms. They predetermine what they want to give to the jurors, and they set the precedents on the record of what they want them to hear, period. And I'm really concerned about that, and we've got to find a way to change the narrative. And so again, I want to say thank you, for allowing my family to say, at this time that, my heart goes out to the Manuel Ellis family and the ones, but I will end with this. There's a reduction of loss of life, and there has been progress, but it's not enough. We have got more work to do. Thank you.
I'm with the Tacoma Action Collective, and we just want to make it clear what Monet has already said. This isn't just about 3 officers who were charged by the state. There are many other officers involved, but there were a lot of other people involved in covering it up. You had Pierce County investigating this when they knew that they weren't supposed to. Tacoma Police Department knew that Pierce County shouldn't have been investigating this. It should have been given to somebody outside of that. It should have been an independent investigation from the beginning. But instead, we had Pierce County pretend to investigate it and wait until it became public to try to hurry up and close the case. But we're not gonna let that happen. This isn't closed, this isn't finished. And again, it's not just about those 3 officers, it's about everybody in Pierce County and Tacoma who were involved. We don't want this to happen. We have no idea how many times this has happened before, but we don't want it to happen again. And so we're gonna keep going, we're gonna keep supporting Monet. Judge Tushkoff, you're included in that. We're not gonna stop.
What is your name?
Jaleesa.
Jaleesa.
Yeah, J-A-L-E-E-S-A. Last name is Trapp, T-R-A-P-P.
You should not have to be convicted of murder to be fired from your job. Perhaps it's enough if there's probable cause for murder determined by a judge who evaluated all the information. Perhaps it's enough if a panel of individuals that includes 2 judges review all the discovery and all the information and decide that there should be a charging decision in relation to at least 3 of the officers that killed Manuel Ellis. Perhaps that should be enough. These 3 officers have continued to get paid for over 3 years. And there's no indication thus far that the city of Tacoma has any desire or will or intestinal fortitude to actually fire these officers. And if they fail to fire these officers, this is what happens. Even if they leave for some other job, they can go to another police department and do this again to somebody else somewhere else. That's what's in the balance here, and that's part of what the test is as to whether or not the city of Tacoma actually cares about black people, people of color. When you have a panel that makes that decision that 3 of your finest officers have committed murder, when you have another judge that determines that there's probable cause to justify them going to trial in relation to murder, when you have to be in a space where a separate agency actually prosecutes because there's a conflict due to collusion in relation to those 3 officers, the very least thing that you could do is actually remove them from their jobs by firing them. Not pushing them off to some other county or city or other place where they can live in an anonymity with the money that you've given them for the past 3 years. Not that. Not allowing them the opportunity to simply resign, which has sometimes happened with departments around the country that have been in similar circumstances. So we have a real test coming up in terms of justice here and what it looks like. And that the city of Tacoma fails to fire these officers, it only serves as notice that they truly do not think Black Lives Matter. And that goes for all of them.
Do you include the mayor in that criticism?
Yes, unless the mayor stands up again and says, I wanted to fire those officers. Yes. If she sticks with her, they should be arrested, charged, and fired, that she originally said when she saw the videos, then she stands on her own word. But we'll have to see what this city decides to do before we can make any real determination.
Did the U.S. Attorney's Office contact the family or yourself with regard to that office looking and reviewing this case?
Well, there were a couple of things happening simultaneously. One is Monet found a very creative way to make sure that she was contacting the U.S. Attorney General with her megaphone with 3 or 4 other people for hours at a time, day in and day out, after the trial, in front of their building. The other is that the attorneys were contacting and reaching out to the U.S. Attorney's Office as well. And it is true that we did have a meeting, discuss what our concerns were, and that the U.S. Attorney's Office has in fact made that determination that they will be investigating these officers, perhaps others as well, for civil rights violations as it pertains to the murder of Manuel Ellis. Do you have something you want to say?
Yes,
Come on up. Oh, okay, come on up.
I'm Lisa Earle. I'm the mother of Jacqueline Salyers, who was killed by Tacoma police officers in 2016 on January 28th. I have walked with so many families that have gone through this unjust system. And when I'm asking, will the U.S. Department of Justice come in to do their job? We went there almost 8 years ago to ask for your help, and this has nothing but escalated to where we are today. I have been through so much with this so-called justice system here in Washington State. I don't know. When will you come, U.S. Department of Justice, and do your job? You asked us to do it. We've been doing it. It's your turn. That's all I have.
So there it is, our demand for the Department of Justice to come in, impose a consent decree, and protect people of color and others that find themselves within the boundaries of the city of Tacoma and Pierce County. Any other questions?
I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about how this investigation is different from what we've seen prior and what we can expect to see?
In terms of what we've seen prior, what do you mean?
In terms of the different investigations that have already happened and then also the criminal trial.
As it pertains to Manuel Ellis?
Yes.
Okay. One of the reasons why we reached out to the Department of Justice had to do with what we saw at trial. I can tell you as an attorney, a trial attorney of approximately 20 years that has sat in those seats as an attorney arguing cases, that I never saw anything quite like how this court handled itself, frankly. The judge consistently commented on evidence. The judge made cracks and comments that were, in my estimation, disrespectful between sessions. There were things that just didn't sit well in terms of what was allowed to be heard as it pertains to Manuel Ellis and his past. I say it doesn't sit well because just about any defense attorney will tell you that the things that were allowed constitutionally in the state of Washington are not typically allowed in those kinds of cases. I expect that to be different in the event that there's an indictment and trial under the federal system, that the rules will actually apply fairly, that the court will handle, the federal courts will handle it differently than what we saw at state court, which is part of why we went to the federal court in the first place. Because ultimately, when the state fails to be in a place where it can operate justly in its courtrooms, the federal court has to step up and it has to step in. So I wouldn't be surprised if this trial is evaluated by the federal court or the U.S. Department of Justice, and then that the U.S. Department of Justice in turn conducts their own very thorough investigation into the parties in this particular case. The parties being all of the police officers that were there, all of the police officers that participated in the killing, and given that this is a civil rights matter, I wouldn't be surprised if they also looked at who participated in what may have been a cover-up. I say may. For me, it was a cover-up, absolutely. The evidence is present, and that's exactly why the state of Washington itself and the Attorney General's office initially had to step in, and now we need more. Any other questions?
Have you been in touch with City Hall and the top brass with the PD with regard to your clear demands to fire these officers since trial ended?
I would say that they definitely know how we feel. In terms of whether we have direct contact, I can concretely tell you that I am in litigation with them. So if I'm talking to anybody, it's their attorneys, because they're all represented. Yes.
The community has made it clear since June 2020, when they found out what happened, that they wanted the officers fired. Even as recent as this past Tuesday's city council meeting, people got up and said that they wanted the officers fired. So they know what people want, they know what the community wants, and so we don't need direct communication, they know. In addition to that, Liz Pauley, she's not doing her job. The community has also asked for her to be fired. She is not doing a good job of managing this city. We've spent more than $1 million on salaries of people who are awaiting trial. If that was me, I would have been fired from my job a long time ago. Actually, I probably would have been in jail. My bail wouldn't have been set at such a low amount. So it's very clear that this family, this community would like those officers to be fired and would also like Liz Pauley to be fired.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. I Was there any mention of investigating Pierce County Sheriff's Office or Ed Schroyer in that, or just
Which call?
with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
The meeting.
Meeting, yes.
Okay. It was an in-person meeting, not a call. That's why I was somewhat confused. We articulated our concerns about Ed Schroyer and Pierce County in and of itself. They have somewhat of a symbiotic relationship, Pierce County and the city of Tacoma. They've been backing each other for quite some time now in a really remarkable way. We're aware of some deals that they've had in the past in terms of agreements to investigate one another.
Is there any estimation for how long this investigation might take?
There is no estimate that we're aware of. What I can tell you from my personal experience is that when the Department of Justice and the U.S. attorneys decide to investigate a case, they are very thorough. And when they do that, it could take quite some time.
And we have people that can apply pressure if needed.
And in the interim, we'll continue to press for the changes that we've articulated, some through state courts, some through state legislature, and also saying that we don't have to wait too long for a consent decree. The proof is in the pudding. We have officers running over human beings in Tacoma. We have homeless people being shot, hogtied. We have pregnant women being shot and killed. We have people being killed on the ground, hogtied, tased, beaten, and as they plead for help and say, "I can't breathe, sir," they're told to shut the F up, and then a spit mask is put over their head. At what point is there an actual intervention by somebody that can do something? To the federal government, Tacoma needs you, and now's the time. Anything else? Okay. Thank you for your time.